Welcome to Ruminations from Among the Bards. I am Christopher Lewis, and today I would like to talk about infinite possibilities of a new kind of storytelling and a new horizon for literature. The reason that I say it that way is that the cultural horizon of the Western mentality is limited. Our general historical perspective is too narrow. It does really not reach very far into the human experience. And it certainly doesn't reach far enough into the inheritance of divine vision, the human place in the cosmos. And it doesn't reach deep enough, I feel, into what it means to be human. We are often wandering blind in thought and experience, and I find that generally that's the condition of modern culture and literature. What makes great literature? Theme and characterization. We have lost our bearing on the development of character, and we've lost our bearing on the classical meaning of virtue and its development. This is the framework in which men and women should mature into wisdom. Too much of modern story devolves upon the unraveling of character, and this is part of the disease of our times. Now, I'm not necessarily condemning this if this is where we are and this is what our experience is, but I feel like there's something more that needs to be explored. What makes great writing? Skills with language, exploring and unleashing the power of language. And this is not entirely lacking today. There are plenty of good writers. There's good young writers. What has been lost is a sense of vision. What are the great themes? The most glaring deficiency in our understanding of our cultural and intellectual inheritance is our lack of respect or even caring about the changes that Christianity made in all world cultures that it encountered, in the way that we think about everything, in the cultural DNA of our world. This is why we no longer know who we are as a people. We don't understand our origin. We don't really even understand the direction for personal and spiritual maturity, or what that even means. We are inheritors of the Judeo-Christian worldview. This has been the unifying force of Western thought and culture. But the fact is that since the Middle Ages, we've lost our understanding of what that really is. Our worldview since the Renaissance is largely occupied with rebelling against the Judeo-Christian worldview. And since the Romantic Age, we've been searching for our origins in the peoples who existed before Christian identity. And so it's become popular to seek out pre-Christian ideals and rely on them as a guide to the inner life of humanity. This is a mistake. In our previous ruminations, I spoke of the enduring value of story. I spoke of a need to recover the old tales. I said that deep in the wilderness of the old tales, a path is encountered. That is the path to humanity. That path is there. It is discovered. It is not made. The signposts on that path provided direction among the trials and sufferings of human existence. And I want to propose as a new possibility that the signposts on that path are icons. And I am speaking of Christian Orthodox icons. What does that have to do with the art of storytelling? They introduce a completely new understanding of human history. Now, it's not really new, but it's new to us. Augustine described history as a series of calamities resulting from the fall of humanity. Humanity began as something different from what we experience. We experience death, disease, conflict. This was not part of the original human experience. Now, obviously, we have rejected this view. We need to make sure that we know what it is that we have rejected. Because even in pre-Christian mythology, we see this. In the golden age of Hesiod and the Greeks, and in other cultures too, the old stories accepted this view that there was a better type of mankind long ago than what there is now. And this was a key to understanding who we are. This inevitable rushing towards death described by Augustine, with war and conflict, domination, invasion and destruction, this that we know as history, it was interrupted in time by a timeless event upon which even historians used to note as the turning of the ages by numbering the years before and after this event, when the Creator God was born in the flesh. And he did not simply teach a new way of life, he brought a new way of life by bringing the divine into human experience. The uncreated energies of the Godhead through the Holy Spirit, so that simple men and women could be made God-like. This is the point, the sanctification of the human race. Why do we reject the idea of sanctification? Because we don't know what it is. We don't even know what it looks like. We have no idea what the spiritually transfigured human person is. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about pretty romantic paintings with lovely colors. I'm not talking about fantastic legends. I'm talking about dynamic personalities, astonishing stories of superhuman accomplishments, some of them more extraordinary than many legends, stories upon which history has turned and been overturned. Now, of the ones that we know of, we have made kind of a ridiculous caricature. Constantine the Great is an example. He is much maligned in popular culture. Who Constantine was after his conversion is hidden from our view, unless we look at his ancient hagiography, that is, the writing of his life in sanctity. We have examples like St. Patrick and St. Bridget and Columba of Ireland, but we've relegated all of these to legend. We have St. Vladimir of Russia, but he's not very well understood in general either, because we don't know the facts, because historians unfamiliar with the experience of the Orthodox faith have told us these are nothing but legend. And there are legends. But there is also an accounting of miraculous encounters more amazing than legend. And we know this because we see this spirituality alive today in the current generation of saints on Mount Athos in Greece, and even here in America and in many other places. Now, to describe what this life of sanctification actually is, it would have to be done by a writer who had experience of sanctification. And there are marvelous storytellers who are able to illustrate what that is and can give a convincing picture. And this is what I want to introduce now. And foremost among these is Saint Dmitri of Rostov, a Russian writer of the 1700s, a bishop in the time of the time of Emperor Peter the Great. Now, I'm not proposing that storytellers have to confine themselves to the lives of these saints. In my opinion, our job as writers is to illustrate the human struggle with compassion, but knowing that sanctification exists as the background of story now. There are great theophanies to be discovered, but in our lives we need little theophanies. Theophany means a revelation of God. This is the great theme of our time, finding God again. The relationship with God is the only thing that makes humanity complete. And our relationship with other people also gives us a hint, because there is always something about the simplest person, the crudest person, that can be unexpected and revelatory. Now, once we know that this dimension of sanctification exists and is possible for every character and in every impossible struggle, our eyes are opened. Now the storyteller can become a seer in the prophetic sense, in that the meanest person, the most despicable, ignorant, lowest, most despised, has an unseen potential that can astonish us. Or even the most dismal situation contains the possibility to reveal something completely unexpected in the midst of the story. That makes surprising sense of everything. And this, I think, is the secret to great storytelling. And I believe that Shakespeare knew this, and that this is what made him such a great storyteller. Am I suggesting that we only tell stories about saints and holy men and women? No, not at all. But only to be aware that this reality exists and that our condition is nowhere as hopeless as it often seems. Now, it's not my purpose as a writer to write about virtuous characters and saints. It's enough to know that they exist, that they are present, perhaps operating in the background. Like most modern writers, I feel it's important to write about troubled and broken people, about their struggles, but also to open up a vision of new possibilities for their transformation. Slow, painful, but full of unexpected hope. So if I call this a new theory of story, I mean it's new to the American and European experience. Russian writers knew about it. Great Russian writers like Dostoevsky, Gogol, Tolstoy. It's all through their writings. They wrote Orthodox fiction in an age when the intellectuals of Russia, being affected by Enlightenment values, had turned away from it and had to rediscover Orthodox culture. So I would like to spend a few sessions and ruminations talking about some of the great writers who understand what sanctity is in the human person, who have experienced it and can describe it really well. Most of these writers are unknown in our culture and deserve to be better known. I want to talk about Saint Sophronia of Essex and about Saint Nikolai of Serbia. I want to talk more about Saint Dmitri of Rostov and then I want to talk about other things. And I hope that you will join me in this adventure. I am Christopher Lewis, poet and author. I ask you to check out my books at Anaphora Press and on Amazon, and my writer's blog at Orthodox Illumination on WordPress.